Hello everyone, I'm Musa Yusuf Buhari. So, welcome back to another new exciting episode of my program. In today's video, I would like to talk on the restricted diet for the diabetes mellitus patient, those suffering from this condition, the types of the food that are not supposed to be using by them so as to stay in a better healthy condition. One of the categories of the food substances that people suffering from diabetes mellitus should avoid is junk food such as hamburger, donut, and group of food that are fall within the class of junk food because these categories of food produce a lot of energy in the system or in the blood, and always you should remember the problem associated with diabetes has to do with the insufficient insulin to work on the carbohydrates and control the blood glucose level. So as such, it is best to avoid the use of these categories of the food because it lead to the obesity and in turn can significantly increase the chance of becoming diabetic patient. Then number two, carbonated drinks. Most of the carbonated drinks are high in glycemic index and they have less nutritional values in them, such as Coca-Cola, Fanta, among others, and all the carbonated drinks are not friendly with the diabetic patient. And as such, it is the best for diabetic patient to stay away from these categories of food substances because carbonated drinks are highly rich in sugar levels. They can easily contribute uh, to the glucose availability within the bloodstream, and therefore the problem can be manifested or can be very severe to the patient suffering from this condition. Then number three categories of the food items that are not advisable for those suffering from this condition to be avoiding are alcohol consumption. Even though alcohol is not food, some patients that are suffering from this condition are embarked in the habit of drinking alcohol because when alcohol is being consumed, alcohol is highly rich in energy or calories. So therefore, it can goes to the bloodstream directly and it will be affecting the patient. It will be generating acetaldehyde when it is being metabolized by the action of enzymes alcohol dehydrogenase in the liver to be producing acetaldehyde, which is another bad compound that can be produced within their body and producing carbon dioxide and the water within the system. So as such, it is not good for those suffering from this condition to be using alcohol. Then another categories of the food, saturated fats, which mostly come from the animal source, are not advisable or recommended for those suffering from this condition to be using because it contain high amount of calories as such. So just like uh, butter, margarine, they are hydrogenated fats and they contain high amount of calories in them. Just like one tablespoon of butter or margarine, it produce or it contain about 10 grams of carbohydrate, and in turn it produce a lot of calories. So therefore, that calories can contribute significantly to the severity of this condition, and as such, it is advisable to avoid the use of butter or mayonnaise or some associated saturated fatty acid. They are highly rich in cholesterol, and our body does not need all these substances. So therefore, it is not advisable for those suffering from this condition to make use of class of food that are saturated fatty acid that comes from mostly animals, even with the exception of some uh, omega-3 fatty acid which come from the fish. So this is one of the exceptional animal oil that it's recommended for those that are suffering from this disease condition to use because it is highly rich in omega-3 fatty acid. So apart from that, most of the animals oil are highly rich in saturated fatty acid and it is not diabetic friendly fat. So another categories of the food that is not recommended or restricted for the diabetic patient are butter. I've mentioned the butter. So there are other food substances that are not good for, like table sugar, canned drinks. All these can easily produce energy within their system and it is not advisable. Even natural product of the simple carbohydrate like the glucose, honey, sucrose, all these are naturally produced substances, but they are simple carbohydrate, and simple carbohydrate is not recommended for the diabetic patient, even though they are good class of the food. But for the diabetic case, is not the best because honey is, it contains about 83% of glycemic index, and the level of the glycemic index is very high. So whenever honey is being used by the diabetic patient, it can easily go to the bloodstream and then to produce availability of the glucose within the blood, and therefore it can also affect the patient. Even the sugar, like 1 tablespoon of the sugar produce 10 grams, about 10 grams of carbohydrate, which is equivalent to 40 kilocalorie. So you can see that the level of the calories is very high from the table sugar and the white sugar or maple sugar. So therefore all these are not recommended for the diabetic patient. So for professional advice, you can call my line